You wanted to talk today about navigating online health and nutrition info. What's on your mind with that?
I think that just as more people are in general online and more people are looking online for sources of information for really everything, there are more people who are now getting health information from places all over the internet as opposed to from healthcare providers. And I think it's very important that people know how to navigate this in terms of knowing signs that something is legitimate, signs that something may not be as legitimate, and just being able to assess that so that they're making the best decisions to improve their health.
Makes sense. Um, we can take this however we want. I'm just looking at the notes you made on it, and I think tips for clients, our experiences would be really good. Let's actually, I want to go the opposite direction. I want to go experiences first. What is the most wild thing that you've seen online lately with nutrition info? I don't care who goes first. Whoever wants to go first.
Does anyone have a good one that comes to mind right away?
I haven't seen anything wild, but I would say the trend that I see are those hook lines that kind of suck people in. And they're like the hook lines of like, get this in 20 days and, cure and never have this problem again. So they're really like inviting for people. And then I think that's where the questions come from that I've been getting lately is, hey, you know what? I saw this on TikTok or I saw this on whatever, and it sounds really great. Is it? I think that's the trend that I see a lot of.
Yeah. I keep seeing ads for like diet plans or like supplements or like gadgets, medications, things like this. I it's weird because I don't even search for them too much, other than maybe just looking at the videos. Maybe that's enough to continue having them put it in my face. But it's interesting because I've been around in the space for over 5 years, 5 6 years, and I've started to see the same people show up in different ads. Like um, there's one that talks a lot about intermittent fasting, and like I remember years ago they showed up on YouTube ads. Now I see it in Instagram and Facebook and even TikTok ads, and it's weird to see their messaging like evolve, but still same and stay basically in the same dumpster fire as it was before. It's just like you can see they're like still trying to hook people in the same way, like you mentioned. Yeah.
Related to some of the things that you've both mentioned, there's a lot of there's a pattern of like focusing on a very singular thing. Like it's like a reinventing the whole like one weird trick kind of thing, where there's this one particular food or this one particular thing that you should or shouldn't do, and then that'll solve your health problems.
So an oversimplification.
Mhm.
Yeah. Which is, I think, how a lot of people like to think or want to think or whatever else. Um, yeah. Have you heard anything from clients lately of their experience or whatever they've seen online recently?
Oh, actually, before we go on to that, there was one more thing that comes to mind more for like the general online things. And one that just seems to be increasingly common is overly restrictive elimination type diets. Again, it's the addition or the exclusion of that one particular food or a lot of foods,
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes more than what's necessary for most people. And that just makes it a lot harder to have a fully complete diet, and can make people scared of particular foods or particular food groups. I think that's actually a pretty big one in recent years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the things that I see, not as much lately. It's still there. It used to be quite a lot there, like a few years ago, of people documenting exactly what they're eating on any given day, and a lot of influencers still do this. And it's kind of the same thing because there's usually a set of circumstances that make somebody and whatever they're doing, it makes whatever they're doing fit really nicely. But then, a bit of an oversimplification and maybe a generalization mixed in with maybe some restriction. And then it's like, ooh, I can probably implement this. Why can't I do this? Because it seems so simple. If only it was that simple, though, which it's not. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I've seen, like I've been a dietitian for 15 years, and just in the last little bit, like the social media, the influencer trend has really come into play. Where before maybe it was the analogy I used to say of like telephone. Do you guys know? Am I not? I'm not that old, but do you know what that game is? The
Yeah.
right? Like somebody says something, and by the time it gets to that next person passed down, then they would come to me and be like, hey, you know what? I heard this from so and so, even though it had kind of changed over time, where now it's really changed with social media because everything is instant and people are instantly posting stuff, and influencers, yeah, are doing that exact same thing of like, hey, do this, it's not that hard, you should be able to do it. And then sometimes there's like a catch, or buy this, or things too that come along with getting that information online too, which can be scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of people that are given these messages don't have the background knowledge or experience, but especially knowledge to know, the a lot of the basis for what is said. So a lot of it is regurgitation, such that if you have multiple people trying to do regurgitation without background knowledge, if there's a slight blip in the communication during the telephone game, they're not going to know that it's an actual change. They're just, it's like, oh, it's close enough kind of thing, and not always knowing that if something is embarking on factually incorrect, they're not going to know, and it's just going to continue. And that's a good way to put it. I like that analogy. It's true.
Yeah.
I think a recent telephone game that has been happening recently, and one that Roshni, I think Roshni also had an interview on, is the whole borax thing, going from
Oh,
boron to people now consuming borax instead.
uh, yeah. I don't even have words for that one. I haven't looked into it as much because, I up to now didn't think it was relevant or meaningful to go through borax as it applies to the human physiology, outside of the context of cleaning. Um, but yeah, that one was like, it didn't hit me like right away because I'm just like, okay, there's got to be a parody or a gig. This can't be what people are actually trying to do here. There's no way that, yeah, there's no way. I was wrong. That is it. It's a legit thing people are doing, and I am, yeah, as you can see, stumbling over my words trying to find words for it because I can't wrap my head around it with the idea of it. It's just wonky.
So what do you think as dietitians? I guess that's maybe something we should talk about, is like, how do we help people navigate through this? Like how do we help people through this? Or what is our role in this really big, messy, influencer social media world?
Yeah. Who wants to go first?
Well, I think that there are a few things that healthcare providers can do there. So one, I think one that's very important is just countering the information in itself. So being people that have the relevant education to assess these claims and to communicate the findings of research and summarize the evidence on that. I think that it's important that healthcare providers are part of that battle online in putting out that more good information and spreading out what is important for people to know to try to counter things. And in addition to healthcare providers, I think it's also, and this is increasingly becoming a thing, but health researchers themselves also being health communicators online so that they themselves are summarizing their research in like layman terms so that people are able to understand it, and so that it's harder for people to misconstrue it and spread their own interpretation of things, whether that's intentional or unintentional.
So, what do you think? Um, I mean, this kind of may be a personal preference of sorts, but if you're looking at that type of information, what do you think is a better approach? Just flooding the web with accurate information with hopes of drowning out inaccurate and misinformation, or actually literally going and seeking out misinformation and then just trying to fight it uh, just right head on and just calling it out.
I think that's more so based on someone's personal preference and personal strengths. Like there are people that do both. There are some people who make more like countering videos on places like TikTok. So essentially response videos to this kind of thing where they will play the clip and then just break it down in those individual parts and talk about maybe the pieces of truth there, talk about how, yeah, maybe it starts with some grain of truth and then jumps into something else where they will, um, yeah, where they, yeah, just try to correct the record there. So I think some people have a preference for one or the other. Some people are more effective at one or the other, and it's really just based on that. I think both are very important, but it's going to be different people that do each one.
That's a loaded question, Brett. That's like, how do you solve everything? I like Muriel's answer of like you kind of have both ways to do it. I think our role of healthcare professionals staying on top of that and having a digital presence and getting out there. And then on the other part is educating clients on what they're looking for to like how to kind of spot and question and not take everything as face value. Watching out for things that are promising the moon and promising everything to be fixed and taking it literally versus doing some background check or doing some, is this valid, is there something to back it up, what is the credentials of that person that I'm following or watching. So almost trying to educate on the safety, I don't know if that's the right word, but like, yeah, the safety of being online too.
Yeah, I've seen examples of both, and I definitely know what you mean about it may be personal preference and what people are good at. Because I know people that can do both. I know people that if they tried to address it head on and call it out in like a comment section or whatever else, that may be get a little bit dicey. I think I think we could probably do with more of that because I mean, in some cases, trying to take the easy approach that's just a little light and soft, sometimes doesn't work always that well. But I definitely appreciate and agree with the always trying to do our best to put accurate information out into the world that is up to date and not like 20 years old as well. Anything else with how you would approach it, or what else that you've seen, or other tips in a general sense?
I think a few important things were one, so first, just assess what the source is. Does that person have some sort of background related to that particular subject? Were they just doing some reading of their own? Something else that's very important, specifically when it comes to individuals online, is looking at credentials as well. So again, going back to registered health professionals who are more educated on a subject, it's not just the education in itself. Something that I think is also very important is recognizing that those who are part of a professional licensing board also have specific standards that they need to abide by. So if, let's say, if someone doesn't have those rules that they need to abide by, they can play a little more fast and loose with things that they're promoting and not need to really worry about repercussions or anything. So just seeing what standards someone has that they need to follow when they are providing this information. Another thing that I think is very important is just looking at what kind of evidence that they're providing and where it's from. So is there evidence from, is it a summary of some sort of peer-reviewed sources? Is it fairly consistent with other sources? Or is it something that's more alternative? And if it is something that's more alternative, how is it being presented? Because as we all know, evidence changes over time for just about every scientific discipline and for nutrition as well. So is this some kind of like new research that's been published and reviewed, and maybe we're moving towards evidence changing a certain way, or is this someone presenting just an alternative thing on their blog where it's not really discussed or debated or reviewed through a kind of formal process? So I think those are a few areas that are good to start with when we're trying to assess what is more likely to be legitimate, what is more likely to be backed by evidence, and just what is likely more trustworthy.
Andrea, anything to add on that?
No, those are all really good points. The other part, I think, and the nutrition community and dietitians and things probably have a play is that there is a lot out there, and it doesn't mean that it's not going to work for that person or that it's not a good option to explore, even if it is coming across in maybe a more alternative route, or something that maybe is, the research is hesitant, is always, reach out to your health team, and have great conversations about it, because if it's not something that's harmful, if it's not something that's going to interfere with maybe something you're doing, then you've got kind of that support to try and see it through and see if it works for you. So I think that makes it just important, if you are seeing stuff, to just talk to your health team about it and explore the options, in a I don't know what the word is, but like in a supportive way, I would say.
I'll add a piece that's kind of an extension of both of yours. One thing that I find helpful that I always tell my clients to look for is what the motive is for sharing said information. A lot of times, if you trace things back on social media accounts, pages, even blogs, you trace the steps backwards, and you usually find people are selling something, whether it's a product, a supplement, a plan, whatever else, whether or not they are a regulated healthcare professional. The fact that they're trying to sell you something alongside that information. Now, one could debate about like the difference between coaching services such as those accessible at Revive and something that's like you're pushing supplements as a potential solution for something that's in a blog or a post or a video that's highlighting a really colorful problem that people are having. And if, oh, look at this supplement that I also sell that could solve that for you, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like that's a source of bias that in my mind is a bit of a conflict of interest. Because, if they're just providing said information and framing it in such a way in order to get you to buy something of theirs, as opposed to just genuinely being interested in helping you figure out how to navigate whatever topic, then obviously that's going to impact something. And now, obviously, regulated healthcare professionals, people that are trained and are educated in the field, are going to know how to navigate that and write accordingly, filter out their bias, all those types of things. But oftentimes, if you don't have that background, it's very difficult to do so. And, and it usually is quite obvious, in my mind, when you're looking at stuff.
And an extension of that, it's not always just selling a product, but it can even just be selling a lifestyle or selling a specific diet. Like there are some people who their career relies on promoting the same thing for like 10 years straight, even if the evidence there changes. And some of them sell products, but some of them also may just like sell books that are extensions of that same thing. Maybe just like their blog that's an extension of that same thing. It's not always specifically a product.
True, 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 true. Yep. Mm-hmm. Made me chuckle when we were when you mentioned books there. I haven't moseyed into a chapters recently, but I usually whenever I went, even if I wasn't buying anything, I'd always like take a cruise through the diet book section just to see what was out there. Maybe turn a few covers around for fun.
There's a really great question in the comment box, which I think actually fits really nicely into this conversation because we haven't even touched on apps. Apps are another component to get people into whatever they're buying or selling. Oftentimes, they're not validated, evidence based, or research based, and that's like a huge other piece that we haven't had to deal with before. Not in my, oh my gosh, I'm not old, but not in my lifetime. Like, not, later on in my career, this is now an issue coming up, where before you would just walk into these places, but now they've got apps and things like that. So I think a program, and Brandon, you can speak on this, or Premier will speak on this, is why we've been working really hard to create and promote our web-based program, my Viva Plan, because it was built by healthcare professionals with evidence um, based recommendations and research back to back that up. And that's there are not those kind of programs out there.
True. That's yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, one of the huge components of it is to be a kind of one-stop shop for the information you need regarding nutrition, mental health, and fitness. And and if you're already in there doing stuff, working on a nutrition strategy or plan of some sort, and you want information about a specific food or a specific strategy, then that's going to be a place to go. It's not as easy as it looks, but somebody's got to do it the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that speaks to the point earlier of how we as healthcare professionals can start to fill that digital space and get in there to be able to be a great solution for people, and be kind of trusted and not lost in the um, fog and the 50 cajillion hits of nutrition that are out there on Dr. Google. So,
Okay, well, we're coming out of time here, so any last zingers on this topic before we wrap it up? We
Does
have
anyone
a,
have recommendations for maybe specific starting places when it comes to looking for good nutrition-based information?
I mean, I can do the plug of just chatting with a dietitian would be helpful. If I was to pick a place to go online for this type of information that is free, I would probably say whatever social platform that you're on, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, try and just find somebody that has the credentials. So, like, a specific website may be tricky, or just locate the dietitians wherever you are, whatever app you're in, whatever website you're on, and then go from there. And they may have a blog, awesome, but at least that'll get you started.
yeah. I would even feed on that some of my top ones to go toward, depending on what information you're looking for. If you're looking for, a health condition of some sort, as we forget that we actually have associations for a lot of health organizations out there with information for free, access to communities out there, and support networks and stuff. So looking for those trusted, verified organizations that are working towards research and are producing that evidence because it is for free. Um, yeah, that would be my recommendation.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I look forward to our next one. We have a potential topic coming up as we started digging into a little bit of specific trends. We can maybe add that as another uh, topic idea for a future one because I think that could be a whole episode in and of itself. So thanks to the idea for that one. That makes it easy for topic idea generation. Okay, very nice. Thanks for joining, everyone. Glad that we could hash this out a little bit. I'm sure we could spend like 2 hours getting lit about all of these pieces, but we got to keep it reasonably short.